after Ahrin entered the room and finally arrived. Gyeonrok rose from his seat and inquired why she was tardy, and if anything had happened to her. She then apologized, explaining that she was a bit delayed due to attending a fellow actor's funeral. Gyeonrok reassured her, expressing understanding given the circumstances. He then transitioned to a more pressing matter, instructing her to extend greetings to the majority shareholder he had mentioned earlier. Ahrin then turned to Ryu and Wonnie, offering her salutations and introducing herself as Seo Ahrin, an actress. However, she suddenly realized that the two were the neighbors who had recently moved in and had given out rice cakes. Ryu confirmed her observation, and she greeted them warmly, expressing her delight at discovering that the shareholder was actually her neighbor. Nevertheless, she couldn't help but inwardly note that Ryu appeared younger than her, yet he held the majority shares. This led her to wonder if the CEO was playing a prank on her, as it seemed improbable for someone so young to possess such wealth. Nervously, and with a blush coloring his cheeks, Wonnie confides in Ryu that the person in front of them is indeed Seo Ahrin, and he's a huge fan of hers. Internally, Ryu acknowledges that Wonnie may not be aware of the connection between Ma Gyeonrok and Ahrin, hence his surprise at her sudden appearance. He then wonders if Wonnie's reaction is typical of the attention people usually give to someone as attractive as Ahrin. Observing Wonnie's nervous demeanor in Ahrin's presence, Ryu decides to mimic his interest and nervousness. Gyeonrok notices Ryu's performance, though unaware that Ryu is faking his nervousness. Gyeonrok smirks, thinking to himself that Ryu is indeed a man, and it's natural for him to act that way around someone as beautiful as Ahrin. Reflecting on his decision to invite Ahrin, Gyeonrok deems it a good idea and suggests they must be hungry, inviting them to make themselves comfortable and enjoy the food. As they settle at the tables laden with various dishes, Wonnie's face brightens as he savors the food, remarking to Ryu how the meat simply melts in his mouth. Encouraging Wonnie to indulge further, Ryu joins in the conversation as Gyeonrok inquires about their enjoyment of the meal, mentioning he instructed the chefs to give extra attention to tonight's menu. Ryu compliments the deliciousness of the food, prompting Gyeonrok to ask Wonnie for his opinion. Nervously, Wonnie admits it's incredibly tasty, and unlike anything he's ever tasted in his entire life. Gyeonrok expresses satisfaction that their efforts were worthwhile, though internally admitting he had pressured the chefs the previous night to perfect each dish until they met his standards. Gyeonrok then posed another inquiring of Ryu why solely his younger sibling was present, pondering the absence of their parents or other kin. Ryu responded that Wonnie was his sole family, as their parents had already passed away. Gyeonrok was taken aback by this revelation, expressing his condolences, yet internally chastising and reproaching himself for his thoughtless question, realizing its impact on the somber atmosphere. Observing Wonnie's downcast demeanor, Gyeonrok resolved to maintain silence until a more uplifting mood prevailed. Thus, an air of quietude enveloped the room as dessert was served. Savoring his tea, Gyeonrok silently acknowledged the need to uplift the mood. Casting a glance towards Ahrin, he hoped to catch her attention. Setting down his cup, he rose from his seat and beckoned Ahrin to join him for a moment. Understanding his unspoken request, they stepped outside the room they had just occupied. As they walked, Gyeonrok called out to her, prompting her to halt. He then inquired about the flavor of the food they had just consumed. With a smile, Ahrin confirmed its deliciousness. However, Gyeonrok's demeanor turned serious as he questioned whether she truly believed he had summoned her merely to feed her. He admonished her gently, explaining that he had invited her with the intention of improving the ambience, so he was surprised by her lack of awareness. Apologetically, she conceded her misunderstanding, believing she was merely attending a party rather than being tasked with lifting spirits. Gyeonrok sighed in response, questioning the rationale behind inviting her to such an event. He then queried whether her bodyguard had neglected to inform her of Ryu Min's true identity. Ahrin tentatively replied, "Isn't he our majority shareholder?" To her astonishment, Gyeonrok clarified that Ryu held a more profound role as a seer. A seer?" she stuttered nervously, taken aback by the revelation. He replied, "Exactly, a seer." He elaborated that it's a special class capable of foreseeing the future. Then he inquired if she understood why it was crucial to keep Ryu happy now, emphasizing how valuable it would be if Ryu disclosed what would occur in the next round. Advising Arin to utilize her charm and comply with Ryu's wishes, and smile at him. He clenched his fist and urged her to do whatever it takes to win Ryu's favor. Arin respectfully declined, expressing her inability to comply. Gyeonrok reminded her that if he, the CEO, had paved the way for her success as an actor, it was only fair for her to pay him back. He instructed her to foster a positive atmosphere for Mr. Rumin. Observing Ahrin's silence, Gyeonrok pressed her for a response, to which Ahrin nervously replied, "Yes, sir." Upon returning to the room, Gyeonrok informed her that he would monitor her performance closely, to which Arin acknowledged her understanding. Meanwhile, the bodyguard and the two brothers sat in awkward silence. The silence was loud. Shortly after, Gyeonrok and Arin returned, apologizing for the delay and explaining that their business discussion had taken longer than anticipated. As they finished eating, Gyeonrok suggested relocating the gathering elsewhere. While getting ready to leave the room, Gyeonrok internally pondered why Arin seemed hesitant, despite his instruction to seduce Ryu. However, Wonnie interrupted, praising Arin and confessing to being a huge fan. Blushing, he complimented her on her beauty in person compared to pictures. She then expressed her gratitude, and he politely asked if they could snap a photo together when she had a moment. She replied enthusiastically, which brought a smile to Wonnie's face, and she thanked him in return. Meanwhile, Gyeonrok was messaging Arin, while privately noting that Wonnie seemed more enthusiastic than Ryu, prompting him to rethink his plans. Moments later, Arin received a text from Gyeonrok, informing her of the change in plans. He advised her to get close with Wonnie first instead of Ryu. Internally, Arin couldn't believe she was being asked to manipulate an innocent fan. Throughout this exchange, Ryu was silently observing their thoughts, thanks to his mind-reading ability, and was aware of Gyeonrok's scheming. Gyeonrok, in turn, was contemplating that once Arin gained Wonnie's favor, Ryu would naturally come over to their side, facilitating the acquisition of information for the next round. Unbeknownst to Gyeonrok, Ryu had been reading his thoughts the entire time and understood his intentions. After a brief interlude, they arrived at their next destination, where Gyeonrok led them to a private room reserved for double VIPs. The room was opulently furnished, bathed in a rich reddish hue. In this room, one has unlimited access to drinks, snacks, and music. Wonnie then reminds Gyeonrok that he's still in middle school and therefore unable to drink. Gyeonrok reassures him, saying it's fine and not a big deal since there are plenty of other beverages available. Gyeonrok then instructs the bodyguard to procure the double VVIP special course here, along with beverages for Wonnie. Gyeonrok nods affirmatively and departs the room. Ryu chimes in, mentioning his own aversion to alcohol. Gyeonrok suggests Ryu give it a try since he's of legal drinking age. Ryu then turns to Arin, asking if she'd be willing to take a photo with Wonnie outside. She agrees, and the two of them exit the room, casting curious glances back at the duo inside. Now that it's just the two of them, Ryu adopts an imposing tone as he questions Gyeonrok's perception of him, asking if he'd take him for a fool. Gyeonrok, visibly nervous, asks for clarification. Ryu then suggests that Gyeonrok may have overlooked his abilities as a seer. He questions whether Gyeonrok thought he wouldn't be aware of his conversation with Arin, given his ability to see the future. Taken aback, Gyeonrok absorbs Ryu's words, pondering their implications. With a determined expression and unwavering tone, Ryu insists that Gyeonrok mustn't conceal anything from him, questioning their ability to maintain their business relationship otherwise.